I never thought my life would unravel on a Tuesday morning. But then again, betrayal never sends an invitation, does it? It just shows up at your door, wearing your jewelry and sleeping with your husband. Let me back up. My name is Sarah Chen, and 6 months ago, I was living what everyone called the dream. Senior Vice President of Business Development at Meridian Tech, a corner office with a view of the city skyline, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and a marriage I thought was solid. I was wrong about that last part. It started 3 months before everything fell apart. I was working on the biggest deal of my career, a $5 million contract with North Star Industries. $5 million. Do you know how many sleepless nights that represents? How many weekends I sacrificed? How many family dinners I missed while I built that pitch deck slide by slide, researched every angle, cultivated the relationship with their CEO for 8 months. My boss, Richard Morrison, knew exactly how hard I was working. He'd pop into my office with his fake, concerned face, asking if I needed anything, patting me on the shoulder like some benevolent mentor. "Sarah, you're doing great work here," he'd say. "This deal is going to change everything for you, for us." I believed him. God, I was so naive. The cracks in my personal life started showing around the same time. My husband, David, had been distant for weeks. We'd been married for 7 years, and I thought we'd weathered the hard parts. You know, the early career struggles, the fights about money, the miscarriage 3 years ago that nearly destroyed us. But we'd survived, or so I thought. We'd hired a nanny, Alina, about 4 months earlier. Not for kids, we didn't have any, but as a house manager. With my crazy hours and David's demanding job as an architect, we needed someone to handle the house, run errands, coordinate repairs, all of that. Alina came highly recommended. 26 years old, efficient, spoke 3 languages, and had a smile that could light up a room. That smile should have been my first warning. I remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a Thursday evening, and I'd come home early, around 6, which was rare. I wanted to surprise David with dinner, maybe reconnect after weeks of barely seeing each other. I'd stopped at his favorite Italian place and picked up fresh pasta and that wine he loved. I walked into our house, calling out his name. No answer. The kitchen was spotless, Alina's handiwork. I heard laughter from upstairs, light and carefree. My heart did this weird flutter, but I pushed the feeling down. I climbed the stairs, the pasta growing heavy in my hands. Their voices were coming from our bedroom. Our bedroom. I stood outside the door, frozen, as Alina's laugh rang out again, followed by David's deep chuckle, the one he used to reserve for me. I pushed the door open. They weren't in bed, thank God, but what I saw was somehow worse. Alina was standing in front of my full-length mirror, wearing my diamond earrings, the ones David had given me for our 5th anniversary. She had on one of my designer dresses, the red one I'd been saving for a special occasion. And David, my husband, was sitting on our bed, watching her with this look, this soft, admiring look I hadn't seen in months. "Sarah," David jumped up, his face flushing. "You're home early." Alina spun around, her hands flying to the earrings. "Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry, I was trying to. I wanted to see how the dress would look because I have a date this weekend and I thought maybe. Get out." My voice came out flat, emotionless. "Take off my jewelry, take off my dress, and get out of my house." She scrambled to remove the earrings, her fingers shaking. David stood there, useless, not defending me, not explaining, just standing there with guilt written all over his face. "Sarah, it's not what you think," he started. "Really?" I cut him off. "Because what I think is that I just caught our house manager playing dress-up in my clothes while my husband watches like she's putting on a private fashion show." Alina fled, practically running down the stairs in her own clothes. I heard the front door slam. David and I stood in our bedroom, 7 years of marriage stretching between us like a chasm. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" "Don't insult me." "How long has this been going on?" "Nothing's going on, Sarah. She was trying on clothes. It's innocent." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "You think I'm stupid? I saw how you looked at her. When's the last time you looked at me like that?" "That's not fair. You're never home. You're always at the office, always working on this deal or that presentation. When's the last time we had a real conversation?" And there it was, the blame shift. Somehow him emotionally cheating with our nanny was my fault because I worked too hard. "I'm working to build our future," I said quietly. "This deal I'm closing, the North Star deal, it's going to mean a promotion. It's going to change everything." "Maybe I don't want things to change," David said. "Maybe I just want my wife back." I slept in the guest room that night, and the night after. Alina never came back, of course. I fired her via text. But the damage was done. David and I moved around each other like ghosts, barely speaking, the elephant in the room growing bigger every day. I threw myself into work. The North Star deal became my obsession, my lifeline. If my marriage was falling apart, at least my career would be solid. At least I'd have something to show for all the sacrifices. I worked 16-hour days those final 2 weeks before the presentation. The pitch deck was perfect, 97 slides of pure brilliance. I'd analyzed every aspect of North Star's business, identified their pain points, crafted solutions that would integrate seamlessly with their existing infrastructure. I'd built financial models that showed them exactly how our software would increase their efficiency by 37% and cut costs by $2.3 million in the first year alone. But here's the thing about being brilliant and exhausted and heartbroken all at the same time. You start to notice things. Little things that don't add up. Like how Richard started scheduling one-on-one meetings with me, asking detailed questions about the North Star pitch. "Just want to make sure I understand all the angles," he'd say, in case the board has questions, like how he'd ask me to email him my latest versions of the deck, for safekeeping. Like how he started having closed-door meetings with the CFO and CEO, meetings I wasn't invited to despite being the one who'd built the entire deal. 3 days before the big presentation to North Star's board, Richard called me into his office. I walked in with my laptop, ready to go over final details. He was standing by his window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. "Sarah, sit down, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. Those 6 words have never preceded anything good. "I've been thinking about the North Star presentation," he began. "Great, because I've refined the ROI calculations and I'm going to present it." Silence. The world tilted slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" He turned to face me and his expression was almost sympathetic. Almost. "The board feels that given the magnitude of this deal, it would be better coming from someone with more seniority. Someone they trust." Someone they trust? Richard, I built this relationship. Marcus North Star, their CEO, he knows me. We've had lunch 6 times. I've toured their facilities. I know his kids' names. And that's excellent groundwork, Sarah, really. But when it comes to closing a $5 million deal, the board wants experience in that room. I have experience. The Henderson deal last year, the Patterson contract, those were different. This is North Star. This is $5 million, the largest deal in our company's history. I felt something cold spreading through my chest. "You're taking my deal. I'm presenting our deal. You'll still get credit for the development work. Your bonus will reflect your contribution." My contribution. "Richard, I am the deal. Every single piece of that presentation came from me. And you did excellent work. But this is how business works, Sarah. You're still young, you'll have other opportunities." I stood up, my legs shaking. "If you do this, if you present my work as yours, it's not your work. You built it on company time, using company resources. The work belongs to Meridian Tech, and I, as head of the division, will be presenting it." I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip his desk. Instead, I smiled. "Of course, I understand." His face relaxed. He'd expected a fight. "I knew you'd see reason. You're a team player, Sarah. That's why you're valuable here." I walked back to my office in a daze. My assistant, Jenny, took one look at my face and asked if I was okay. I nodded, closed my door, and sat at my desk, staring at nothing. 2 betrayals in 2 weeks. My husband and my boss, the 2 men I'd trusted most in the world. That night, I sat in my home office, the house quiet around me. David was at a work dinner, or so he claimed. Probably with Alina, though I had no proof. Did it matter anymore? I opened my laptop and looked at the North Star presentation, all 97 slides of my blood, sweat, and tears. Richard had asked for the final version, which I'd sent him that afternoon. But I still had access to the file on our shared drive. An idea started forming. Dangerous. Risky. Possibly career-ending. But I was so tired of being the good girl. The team player. The woman who played by the rules while everyone else took what they wanted. I opened the presentation file and went deep into the code, the hidden layers that most people don't even know exist in presentation software. I've always been good with technology, a hobby from my college days when I'd considered becoming a programmer before switching to business. I created a simple script, elegant in its cruelty. The presentation would run perfectly, slide after slide, until the very end. Until Richard clicked the final submit button that would supposedly send our proposal to North Star's board portal. That click would trigger a cascade failure. The entire presentation would crash, not just close, but corrupt the file completely. And as a special touch, it would display a full-screen message. Fraud detected. This presentation was created by Sarah Chen. Unauthorized presenter, Richard Morrison. I stared at the code, my finger hovering over the save button. This was insane. If anyone discovered what I'd done, I'd be fired. Probably blacklisted in the industry. But then I thought about Richard's face, his casual dismissal of 8 months of my work. I thought about David and Alina in my bedroom, her wearing my jewelry. I thought about every time I'd been told to be patient, to wait my turn, to be a team player. I clicked save. The presentation to North Star's board was scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. in our main conference room. The whole executive team would be there, plus Marcus North Star and 3 of his board members. I'd received an invitation to attend as a junior member of the development team. Junior member. 8 months of my life reduced to those 2 words. I dressed carefully that morning. My best navy suit, the one that made me look powerful. I did my makeup perfectly, even though I barely slept. David had come home at 2 a.m., slipping into the guest room without a word. We were beyond talking now. Beyond fixing, the office buzzed with energy. Everyone knew about the North Star meeting. This deal would make our quarter, possibly our year. Richard walked around like a king, shaking hands, accepting congratulations for work he hadn't done. He saw me by the coffee machine. Big day, Sarah. You nervous? Should I be? Oh, I'm the one presenting. I just meant nervous for the company. But don't worry, I've got this. I smiled. I'm sure you do. You've certainly prepared thoroughly. Absolutely. Studied your materials inside and out. Good work there. My materials? He couldn't even say our materials. The mask was completely off. At 1:45, we filed into the conference room. Marcus Northstar arrived with his team, all confident smiles and firm handshakes. He looked around, his eyes landing on me. Sarah, great to see you. Are you presenting today? Before I could answer, Richard smoothly intervened. Sarah's been instrumental in the development phase, Marcus. Today I'll be walking you through the proposal. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. Oh, I just assumed since Sarah and I have been coordinating, she'll be here to answer any technical questions, but I'll handle the main presentation. I saw the moment Marcus understood. His expression shifted, that look successful people get when they realize they're watching someone get screwed. But he was polite, said nothing, just nodded and took his seat. The lights dimmed. Richard connected his laptop to the projector, and my presentation, my beautiful presentation, lit up the screen. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. I'm excited to show you how Meridian Tech can transform your operations. I sat in the back row, hands folded in my lap, watching Richard present my work. He was good, I'll give him that. Smooth, confident. He'd memorized my talking points, my transitions. To anyone who didn't know better, this was his presentation. But I knew. And soon, everyone else would too. Slide after slide, Richard performed. The executives nodded. Marcus and his team asked questions, which Richard answered using my research, my analysis. Occasionally, he'd glance at me. Sarah, did I get that right? Making it seem like I was just there for backup. My heart pounded as we approached the end. Slide 95, 96, 97. The final slide showed our company logo and a big blue button labeled Submit Proposal to North Star Board Portal. And with your permission, Richard said, his voice full of confidence, I'll submit this proposal to your board portal right now. It'll give you a chance to review everything in detail, and we can schedule a follow-up early next week. Marcus nodded. Sounds perfect. Richard moved his mouse to the button. I held my breath. He clicked for a second, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. Once. Twice. The presentation froze. Technical glitch, Richard said, clicking again. Just a moment. The screen went black. Then, in large red letters, my message appeared, fraud detected. This presentation was created by Sarah Chen. Unauthorized presenter, Richard Morrison. All work credited to Richard Morrison was performed by Sarah Chen over 8 months. Timestamps and file history available upon request. The room erupted. Richard's face went white, then red. He frantically clicked the mouse, pressed keys, but nothing worked. The message stayed on the screen, glowing like a neon sign of truth. What is this? Marcus stood up. What's going on? Richard spun to look at me. Sarah, what did you do? Every eye in the room turned to me. I stood up slowly, smoothly, and walked to the front. What I did, I said calmly, was spend 8 months building a relationship with North Star Industries. I toured their facilities. I had lunch with Marcus 6 times. I analyzed their business model, identified their pain points, and created a custom solution that would integrate seamlessly with their existing infrastructure. What I did was work 16-hour days for weeks to perfect this presentation. What I did was build a $5 million deal from the ground up. You sabotaged the presentation? Richard's voice cracked. No, Richard, you stole it. I simply protected my work. Our CEO, Robert Chen, no relation, stood up. Sarah, what exactly are you claiming? I'm not claiming anything, I'm stating facts. Every slide in this presentation was created by me. Every financial model, every analysis, every customer insight came from my research. The file history will show that. The timestamps on my computer will show that. My email correspondence with Marcus will show that. Marcus looked at Richard, then at me. Is this true? Sarah did all the development work? Richard scrambled. She contributed, yes, but I supervised, I directed the strategy. You did nothing, I said quietly. 3 days ago, you called me into your office and told me you were taking over the presentation because the board wanted someone with more seniority. Someone they trusted. You took my work and claimed it as yours. Robert's face was hard. Richard, is this true? It's standard practice. Senior executives present major deals. Sarah's work was done on company time. It belongs to the company. I have every right. You have every right to oversee your team, Robert cut him off. You don't have the right to claim their work as your own. And you definitely don't have the right to cut them out of their own presentations. Can someone please explain what's happening? Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. Because I've been coordinating with Sarah for 8 months. She knows our business inside and out. And now I find out she wasn't even supposed to present the deal she built. Robert looked at Marcus, then at me. I could see him doing the calculation, weighing the politics, the fallout. Marcus, I apologize for this confusion, Robert began. It's not confusion, Marcus interrupted. It's pretty clear what happened. Someone tried to steal credit. The question is, what are you going to do about it? The room fell silent. Richard looked like he might pass out. I stood there, calm on the outside, my heart racing on the inside. Robert took a breath. Richard, we'll discuss this in my office. Sarah, can you fix the presentation and complete the meeting with Marcus and his team? Actually, Marcus said, I think we've seen enough. Sarah, why don't you walk us through the key points without the slides? I want to hear it directly from you. And that's what I did. For the next hour, I presented my deal, my vision for how Meridian and North Star could work together. I answered every question. I addressed every concern. And at the end, Marcus shook my hand and said, we'll have an answer by Monday. But Sarah, I'll be honest, I'm impressed, not just by the proposal but by how you handled this situation. When they left, the conference room emptied quickly. Everyone knew there would be fallout. Richard was escorted to Robert's office. I went back to my desk and sat down, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Jenny appeared in my doorway. Oh my God. Did that really just happen? Yeah, I said. It really did. You're either getting fired or promoted, there's no in-between here. She was right. I spent the rest of Friday in a strange limbo, waiting. People whispered. Some colleagues gave me supportive smiles. Others avoided me like I had the plague. At 5:30, Robert's assistant called. Sarah, Robert wants to see you. I walked to the executive floor on shaky legs. This was it. Either I'd just committed career suicide, or I'd taken the biggest gamble of my life and won. Robert's office was intimidating, all dark wood and leather. He sat behind his massive desk, his expression unreadable. Sit down, Sarah. I sat. What you did today was reckless, unprofessional, and potentially damaging to this company. My heart sank. Here it comes. It was also, he continued, completely justified. I looked up, surprised. I've spent the last 3 hours reviewing the file history of that presentation. Every single slide was created by you. Every financial model has your name in the metadata. Your email correspondence with Marcus goes back 8 months. Richard's involvement appears to be limited to receiving status updates and taking credit. Sir, he held up a hand. Let me finish. What you did was dangerous. If North Star had walked out, if they'd decided we were too unprofessional to work with, you would have cost this company $5 million. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. But they didn't walk out. In fact, Marcus called me personally an hour ago. They're signing the contract. They want you as their primary contact. They don't want Richard anywhere near this deal. I felt tears building but forced them back. Richard has been terminated, effective immediately. He'll be escorted out on Monday when he comes to collect his belongings. His actions were a violation of company policy and basic ethical standards. And me? I asked quietly. You're being promoted to Executive Vice President of Business Development. Richard's old position. You'll report directly to me. Your salary will increase accordingly, and you'll receive the full commission on the North Star deal. That's approximately $250,000, by the way. The room spun slightly. Don't know what to say. Say you'll never pull a stunt like that again. Say you'll come to me first if someone tries to steal your work. Say you'll use proper channels. I tried proper channels, I said. Richard was my boss. Who was I supposed to report him to? Robert smiled slightly. Fair point. Next time you come to me, or HR, or hell, send an anonymous email. But the presentation sabotage, that was a nuclear option. It was the only option I had left. He studied me for a moment. You know what Marcus told me on the phone? He said you remind him of himself 20 years ago. Hungry, brilliant, and willing to fight for what's yours. He's very impressed. I left Robert's office in a daze, executive vice president, $250,000 commission. Richard fired, I'd won. I'd actually won, but when I got home that night, the house was empty. David's car was gone. I walked through the rooms, noticing small gaps where his things had been. His favorite jacket. His toiletries from the bathroom. The laptop he kept on the kitchen counter. There was a note on the dining room table. Sarah, I can't do this anymore. I know you'll say I'm running away, that I'm a coward, and maybe you're right. But I can't live with someone who's never here, who cares more about work than us. I've moved in with a friend. My lawyer will contact you next week. I'm sorry, David. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down at the table and cried. Not because I still loved him, I wasn't sure I did anymore, but because my marriage was over. 7 years, reduced to a note on the dining room table. The weekend was a blur. I ignored calls from colleagues, from my parents, from everyone. I stayed in bed, alternating between numbness and grief. Not for David, not really. For the life I'd thought I had. For the person I'd thought I was. Monday morning, I forced myself up, got dressed, and went to work. The office was buzzing with gossip. Richard had been escorted out, his office already being cleaned. People congratulated me, some genuine, some jealous, all curious. I moved into Richard's old office, my new office, and sat behind the massive desk. The view of the city was even better from here. I should have felt triumphant. Vindicated, instead I felt exhausted. Ginny brought me coffee. You okay? David left me. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Don't be, it was over months ago. We were just too stubborn to admit it. Still, that's rough, winning at work, losing at home. I thought about that. Maybe they're connected. Maybe I focused so much on winning here because I knew I was losing there. Or maybe, Ginny said gently, you focused on work because that's where you had control. That's where your effort actually mattered. She was right. At work, I could build something, create something, see the direct results of my effort. At home, I'd been fighting a losing battle against David's dissatisfaction and his wandering eye. The North Star deal officially closed 2 weeks later. $5 million, the biggest contract in Meridian's history. There was a celebration, champagne and speeches. Robert toasted me in front of the whole company. To Sarah Chen, who fought for what she built and won, people cheered, I smiled. But inside, I was thinking about cost, what I'd sacrificed, what I'd lost. 3 months later, my divorce was finalized. David didn't fight for anything. He wanted out clean and fast. We split our assets down the middle. I kept the house. He disappeared from my life like he'd never been there. I heard through mutual friends that he moved in with Alina. They lasted 2 months before she left him for someone else. Karma, people said. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt sad for all of us, for all the ways we'd hurt each other. The North Star implementation was a massive success. Their efficiency increased by 41%, even better than my projections. Marcus became a mentor, introducing me to other CEOs, other companies. My career took off in ways I'd never imagined. 1 year after the presentation disaster, I was having lunch with Marcus at his favorite restaurant downtown. We'd become genuine friends beyond just business. You ever regret it? He asked. The way you exposed Richard, I thought about it. Sometimes it was risky, could have backfired spectacularly, but it didn't. No, it didn't. You know what I admire most about what you did? Marcus cut into his steak. You didn't just reveal the theft, you protected your work in a way that forced everyone to see the truth. You didn't ask for permission or wait for someone to rescue you, you rescued yourself. I also sabotaged a $5 million presentation. He laughed. True, terrible professional conduct. Never do it again. I won't. But Sarah, let me tell you something. In business, in life, there comes a moment when you have to decide who you are. Are you the person who lets others take what's yours, or are you the person who fights back? You chose to fight. That takes courage. It also cost me my marriage. Did it, or did your marriage cost itself? I didn't have an answer to that. 6 months after that lunch, I was promoted again. Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, a newly created role. My salary hit 7 figures. I bought a penthouse downtown with a view that made my old corner office look quaint. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. I was learning to be okay alone, to find value in my own company. The desperate need to be loved, to be validated by someone else, that had died somewhere between David's betrayal and Richard's theft. 2 years after the presentation incident, I ran into Richard at a business conference. He saw me from across the room and actually turned around, trying to avoid me. I walked right up to him. Richard, Sarah, He looked uncomfortable, older somehow. Congratulations on your success. I've been following your career. Have you? Look, I know things ended badly between us, but I hope you understand I was just trying to do my job. Senior executives present major deals, that's how it works. I studied him. He actually believed it. He'd rewritten history in his mind, made himself the victim. Richard, you stole 8 months of my work. You cut me out of my own presentation. You tried to take credit for a deal I built from scratch. I supervised you, I provided guidance. You asked me to email you updates, that's not supervision. He straightened his spine. Well, you certainly got your revenge. Humiliated me in front of the entire company, got me fired, I hope you're happy. I'm not happy about what happened to you, Richard, but I'm not sorry either. You made a choice. You chose to steal credit. I chose to protect my work. We both lived with the consequences. Easy to say when you landed on your feet. I landed on my feet because I did the work. Real, actual work, not taking credit for other people's efforts. He had nothing to say to that. He muttered something about needing to get to a session and walked away. I watched him go, feeling neither anger nor satisfaction, just a kind of tired acceptance. That night, I stood in my penthouse, looking out at the city lights. I thought about the journey from that conference room disaster to here. The pain, the loss, the victories, was it worth it? I thought about my marriage, which would have ended anyway. David and I had been broken long before Alina appeared. The betrayal just forced us to see what we'd been avoiding. Sometimes I wonder if I'd been so focused on work because I sensed the emptiness at home. Maybe I threw myself into the North Star deal not just for my career, but because it was something I could control, something that rewarded effort with results instead of indifference with distance. The night David left, after I read his note, I'd walked through our house seeing it with new eyes. Every room held memories that had already faded. The kitchen, where we used to cook together on Sundays, before his schedules got too busy, before I started working weekends. The living room where we'd planned our future, back when we still believed in that future. The bedroom where Alina had stood in my jewelry, where David had watched her with eyes that should have been for me. I sold that house 3 months after the divorce. Too many ghosts. Too many rooms that echoed with everything we'd lost. I thought about Richard, who tried to build his success on stolen work. He was working at a smaller firm now, I'd heard. Not blacklisted, but definitely marked. His reputation never recovered. Word travels in our industry. CEOs talk. Board members share stories over golf and cocktails. You know Richard Morrison? Tried to steal credit from one of his team members. Got caught red-handed in front of North Star's board. I'd heard he tried to sue the company for wrongful termination. That lasted about a week before his lawyer saw the file history, the email trail, the irrefutable evidence of his theft. The suit was quietly dropped. Sometimes I wonder if he ever took responsibility, if he ever understood what he'd done wrong. Or if he still tells himself he was just following corporate norms, that I was the one who broke the rules. The truth is, we both broke rules. He broke the unwritten rule of integrity, of giving credit where it's due. I broke the written rules of professional conduct, of handling disputes through proper channels. The difference is, my rule-breaking exposed truth, his concealed theft. I thought about the Sarah I used to be, desperate to please, desperate to fit in, always playing by rules that nobody else followed. I remembered being younger in my first corporate job, watching male colleagues get promoted for work their female team members had done. I remembered being told to be patient, that my turn would come, that success required paying dues. I'd believed it. I'd waited my turn. And I'd watched opportunity after opportunity go to men who were less qualified but more confident, less prepared but more aggressive. The North Star presentation was my line in the sand. The moment I stopped waiting for permission to claim what was mine, and I thought about the Sarah I'd become. Harder, maybe, more cautious, but also more confident. More certain of my worth. I don't apologize for my success anymore. I don't downplay my achievements or attribute them to luck or timing or help from others. Yes, I've had help. Yes, I've had opportunities, but I also worked my ass off. I earned every promotion, every deal, every dollar. The woman I am now doesn't let people take advantage of her silence. She speaks up in meetings. She negotiates her salary aggressively. She builds relationships with intention and maintains boundaries with clarity. She's not afraid to walk away from situations that don't serve her, whether that's a toxic work environment or a dying marriage. Is she perfect? God, no, she works too much. She guards her heart too carefully. She sometimes mistakes independence for strength, solitude for peace. But she's real, she's honest. She's mine. The journey from that conference room to this penthouse wasn't just about career success. It was about self-discovery. About learning that being liked is less important than being respected. That being comfortable is less valuable than being challenged. That being safe is less fulfilling than being authentic. I've dated since the divorce. A few relationships that lasted months, nothing that stuck. One man told me I was intimidating. Another said I was too focused on work. A third said he felt like he was competing with my career for my attention. Maybe they were all right. Maybe I haven't figured out how to balance ambition with intimacy. Or maybe I haven't met someone who understands that my ambition isn't a threat, it's just who I am. Marcus says I'm too picky. You're looking for someone as driven as you are, he told me over drinks last month. That's a small pool, Sarah, and those men are usually married to their work just like you. So what do? Settle for someone who resents my success? No, but maybe stop seeing your career as competition. Find someone who celebrates your wins instead of feeling diminished by them. Easy to say, harder to find, but I'm not in a hurry anymore. I spent 7 years with the wrong person because I thought I was supposed to be married, supposed to have a partner, supposed to build a traditional life. Now I know better. Better to be alone and fulfilled than partnered and diminished. Better to build a life I love than compromise for one I can tolerate. The penthouse feels like home in a way the suburban house never did. It's modern, clean, filled with light. Every piece of furniture I chose. Every piece of art I selected. No compromises, no, but David likes traditional style. No negotiations about whether we need a formal dining room we'll never use. This space is mine. When I come home after a long day of negotiations and strategy sessions and impossible deadlines, I walk in and feel peace. Not the peace of having someone waiting for me, but the peace of being exactly where I'm supposed to be. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner next week? There's someone I want you to meet. Potential new client. Could be huge. I smiled and texted back. Absolutely. Send me the details. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Your work is your work. Your effort is your effort. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's validation or theft. It's determined by what you build, what you create, what you leave behind. Did I handle everything perfectly? No. The presentation sabotage was dramatic, risky, and definitely not recommended in business school. But it was honest. It was true. And sometimes the truth has to be dramatic to be heard. Would I do it again? I don't know. I hope I never have to. But if someone tried to steal my work again, if someone tried to take credit for months of my effort, would I fight back? Absolutely. Because I learned something important in that conference room, watching Richard's face as my message appeared on the screen. I learned that sometimes you have to protect what's yours, even if it means taking a risk, even if it means burning bridges, even if it means standing alone in front of a room full of people and saying, "This is mine. I built this. You can't have it." David sent me a Christmas card last year. He's married again to someone I don't know. Alina never lasted. He seems happy in the photo, and I hope he is. Our relationship taught me what I didn't want, and that's valuable too. Richard is still in the industry, still working. We'll never be friends, but we don't need to be enemies either. He made his choice. I made mine. The market decided who was right. As for me, I'm building something new now. Not just deals and contracts, but a life that's actually mine. Not defined by someone else's expectations or limited by someone else's ceiling. A life where my work is recognized, my effort is rewarded, and my worth is never questioned. Is it lonely sometimes? Yes. Do I wish I had someone to share it with? Sometimes. But I'd rather be alone and respected than partnered and invisible. The $5 million deal became $10 million in year 2, then $20 million. North Star became our biggest client, and Marcus became one of my closest friends. The work I almost lost, the deal Richard tried to steal, it became the foundation of everything that came after. I keep that corrupted presentation file saved on my computer. I'll never delete it. It reminds me of the day I stopped asking for permission and started taking what I'd earned. The day I stopped being a team player and started being a leader. The day I chose myself, and you know what? That choice, painful as it was, complicated as it was, that was the day my real life began. So if you're reading this, if you're in a situation where someone's taking credit for your work, where you're being minimized or overlooked or betrayed, let me tell you something. You have more power than you think. You have more options than you realize. And you deserve more than being someone else's stepping stone. Fight for what's yours. Protect your work. Stand up for yourself. It might cost you something. It might hurt. But in the end, looking in the mirror and seeing someone who refused to be diminished, that's worth everything. That's my story. The day my boss tried to steal my $5 million deal and I made sure everyone knew the truth. The day I lost my marriage but found myself. The day everything fell apart so something better could be built. Would I change it if I could? Maybe the way it happened. Maybe I'd handle some things differently. But the outcome? No, because now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Successful, respected, and most importantly, unquestionably, undeniably myself. And nobody can ever take that away from me.